YouTube friends, what's going on? David Lee back, brand new video. Today we are breaking down my recent short film, Tread Softly. I've got a couple of comments, a couple of comments from people who have watched the film asking for a breakdown of the short film. And instead of breaking down the entire short film, because the majority of it was pretty run and gun, it's a lot of like day exteriors where we're just under the under the supervision of Mother Nature, so to speak, right? So there really isn't a lot to speak about. I'll briefly touch upon the day exterior stuff because it might help someone out. But we'll go ahead and talk about the composition choices, the angle choices that best suited the lighting and the visuals. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into Davinci Resolve, and we can take a look at everything once I know what I'm doing here. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and we'll start with our establishing shot, our wide establishing shot, right, which is here. So originally I wanted to shoot the opposite direction of what we're looking at right now, just because, you know, all you can really see is just a bunch of, actually let me go full screen here, because it's, you know, it's not really like the most pleasing thing to look at. It's okay, but again, it's just like fencing, it's cars in the background, you know, whereas the opposite way, there's actually more depth. Even though here you have some decent depth between the hills and the trees in the background, right? So you can kind of see exactly where everything is. But I didn't want to see just a bunch of fences and cars in the way. But unfortunately, the way that things had planned out, there were a bunch of fires happening around this time in Arizona and California, and so that it caused people to show up late, and so we had to shoot this way. And again, the reason why we shot in this way is because we are now backlit, right? So if I go here, trying something new out for you guys, and see if this will kind of work out here. Okay, cool. So our sun is basically probably about right here, right? And it's allowing us to be backlit. When we're backlit, we can see the water reflections a little bit more. We can see more contrast, right? You can even look at the tree here, how the tree is being edged out and then it goes into darkness, right? So we're creating those layers between light and dark, right? Or actually, I should say we're creating the transitions, the transitions of contrast from light to dark, right? So this is pretty much the pull, right? Is we're trying to get everything backlit as much as we can. Excuse me. Let me disable this guy. We're basically just trying to, you know, be backlit for the most part, right? So here we're backlit, again, creating edges, creating edge lights, creating contrast from light to dark. We move in, right? Close-ups. Again, we're kind of just using the availability of the lenses we have, the SLR Magic Micro Primes, going from like the 25 to the 35 to the 50 to the 75 to help tell the story as best as we can through the visuals, through the lighting, through the lensing, right? Now this shot here, you can kind of tell that it looks different from, say, this shot, right? This looks like, okay, the sun's out, right? No overcast, whereas we go here, this looks overcast, right? And because it was. So that was one thing that we were battling with was cloud coverage or broken sky, as it's called, right? So one trick I used to kind of keep the exposure somewhat the same and also to create a different world, right? That's one thing about when you're, whether it's a short film, a narrative, whether it's a commercial, you have the choice to make it as ethereal or non-ethereal as you like, to make it as fake as you want or not as fake as you want, right? So because of the world that we're in, we can choose to create certain parts that are like dreamlike, certain parts that aren't dreamlike, that are more real, right? This part, because overcast, I was like, well, you know, this is my card to kind of make it like dreamlike. So we used Trap Code Shine by Red Giant to create these little like kind of shiny, glimmery effects, spherical aberration as you would see it through a lens, to kind of create the what's the word, to kind of you know, combine and link the exposure as best I could, right? So this is pretty much all this really is, right? We have our cell phone here. The way I did the cell phone was you just create a little layer mask here in Davinci Resolve. I can kind of show you really quick. So if we go here, We go here, right? You can easily just create like a little mask here. And again, this will work in Final Cut Pro 10 or Adobe Premiere Pro, right? It doesn't matter what you got. And then, right, you can just adjust the exposure of this guy. And then you can, where is it? And then you can keyframe it, right? That's basically what I did there. So I'll go ahead and reset the node. Okay, cool. And then everything pretty much is like the same. You know, again, trying to be as backlit as possible is the name of the game, because when you backlight a subject, a scene, that's when you can create as much depth as possible, right? Not to say you can't do it if you aren't backlighting, but things look a lot better when you backlight, because then you're not front lighting everything, you're not smooshing light at someone. All right. And I think that's pretty much it, right? Here we're on the 50 millimeter. Here we're on the 50 millimeter on the FS7, so it makes it more like a 75 millimeter on full frame. And the reason why is because we have a house in the background, we have red tiling in the background. There really isn't a lot to see in the background, so that's why I chose to shoot extreme shallow depth of field to mask and hide away the things that we don't want to see, because there really isn't anything in the back that's going to help bring her out, right? And you know, the one thing though is it does look a little flat in the background because everything is so, you know, blurry. You're in that like altered carbon world. But I chose to not want to see the background because, again, for me, it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. Okay, let's move on to the bathroom scene. That's probably the next best thing. Here is where, actually, before we move on, here is where we didn't backlight. This is where we went kind of front light. And the reason why is because I needed a shot of her getting out of the pool. And, you know, we've been shooting backlight for so much of it that in order for me to have her backlit, you would see, where is it? You would see all these trees and the railing. I didn't want to see that. So that was me putting on my director's hat and saying, well, you know, maybe we just not do the most visually pleasing shot, and we just frontline it to kind of help move on the story. Okay. All right, so move on to the bathroom scene. Now here is where you're looking at a scene, you're like, something's missing, right? So my first inclination was, well, let's see if I can get a practical in the background, right? So we put a nanlight tube, the little 6C nanlight tubes. I put it in there just to help break up the background, because the background is really dark, right? If you compare the background, or if you compare the foreground to the background, there's just something missing here, you know? And I was like, okay, well, we'll put the practical in there, and it's still something missing, and I couldn't figure it out. And we were losing our backlit sun as we were kind of going from late afternoon into sunset. So I said, screw it, let's just go ahead and shoot it. And then in post, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm missing like a little sun slash, right? Which is this guy here. And so what I did was you just create a mask, right? Take the little pen tool and you just start, you know, drawing a little mask, right? And so that's pretty much what I did for this. Let me just reset this guy. That's pretty much what I did to again help kind of create layers, right? Going from light to dark to light, because it's more interesting, it's more engaging when you're looking at something that isn't flat. And then I'm pretty sure what I did was I just warmed up the mask, you know, kind of make it a little bit warmer, mimicking sunlight. Okay, so we'll go in, right? We pan across, revealing her, and then the bathroom scene is the hardest part. This is where you really have to be at the right place at the right time, right? You need the sun backlighting, right? How do I clear this thing? Technical difficulties. I know there's like a clear screen, right? Clear screen. Here we go. Okay, so you need the sun backlighting everything, and the sun also needs to be at the right place, right? Because if the sun is any lower than where the window is, or even if it's just right above where the window is, that's when you have too much exposure coming in, and then you would need to ND, right? But if you ND, that means you need to bring in light somewhere else, right? And if you look at the bathroom itself, there really aren't a lot of options unless you have something way overhead shooting down, which is always a good option, but unfortunately I didn't have the lighting fixtures to achieve that, or the grip to achieve that. So we said, okay, well, what can we do? As we come in here, at least we have one thing going for us, which is we have windows. We have 4 windows here, right? So you can think of that as sort of like our frame, right, for the light to come in. We have our sun up in the horizon, backlighting the entire room, and also backlighting this little slasher. There's a window in this little, that's where the toilet is. There's a window here, and the sun's creating a little, natural organic sun slash, right? What we also did was we put a Falconized 18 TD on the ground, just because we couldn't put it anywhere else. Otherwise, it would be in the shot. Now, ideally, you would want your light or lights to be overhead in some sort of fashion, right? That's creating little, pools of light. It's like a nice little ambient glow, and it's not going to be filling in the person's face, right? What we did was we actually, since I didn't have that, we had the Falconized on the ground, and it's filling her in, but she still has a lot of contrast, right? Even if you look at the waveforms here, and it's pretty low, right? The only thing that's above like 70 IRE is just that window, right? So the Falconized, again, we had to dim down pretty low, and it's just filling her in a little bit, but ideally you would want an overhead instead, okay? So that is pretty much the bathroom scene, right? As we move it for coverage, she sits down. Let me go full screen here. As she begins to continue on the conversation, right? She moves towards the window to sit down, which is a great spot because now you can really get more intentional with the lighting, right? Even though we don't change anything, but as you can see here, right, we have some nice eye light, right? We have a nice soft key, right? And I think a lot of this comes down from a combination of the lenses that we're using. This is the 25mm T1.5 of the SLR Magic Micro Prime. We have glimmer glass as well too. So it's creating this nice soft ambient glow. And again, we're able to create a nice little wraparound, right? From light to dark, and just wraps around her face a little bit, right? Getting a nice little highlight here, pops of highlight here from the reflection of the window, or the glass shower frame, right? And it just lends itself to knowing, being at the right place at the right time, right? Having the sun backlit, even if you don't have huge lighting fixtures and grip fixtures, you can still achieve a nice soft lighting, a nice soft look through having the sun being backlit, having nice windows if you can have a location like that, right? And that was pretty much my decision, was because, well, we don't have a lot going on for us, so let's just be at the right place at the right time. Here we have a little nanolight tube, that little 6C. I have 2 of them. We placed it in the corner of the cabinet sink area, again, just to kind of help bring her out. Otherwise, you would need to put in, you can achieve this through like a power window, and then you just track the power window on her face as it's moving. But if you can get it in camera, right? That's sort of one thing here that you could also do is in the beginning here, probably, that's where you might want to use a power window just to kind of bring her face out, because even though we have light to dark contrast here, she still really isn't the brightest thing in the image. If there was other things competing with her, then it'd be really hard. I think it works out because she's really the only thing in the image that is engaging in kind of in any kind of action. But again, maybe your eyes are kind of drawn to here too long. Maybe it's drawn to here too long, right? So a power window around her face would help out in that instance. Okay, moving on. We're gonna go into the car stuff, which probably I had more people ask about more than anything, was the car interior. And again, there really isn't anything special here. It's really just being at the right place at the right time, right? It's choosing to shoot at golden hour, to shoot at magic hour, right? And the reason why, again, is being backlit, right? We have the sun behind us. We have as much opportunity to create layers of contrast that we can, especially being in a car, right? So we'll start from like the beginning shots of the car here. Okay, we have our sun. Let me see if I can do this properly. Okay, so we have our sun, again, being backlit from everything. Clear screen. Okay. apologies for all this. But again, we have our sun pretty much actually behind her in this scenario, right? Sun here. We have natural fall off from the window frame, from the car interior. The car interior is basically just being like a big neg for us, right? And then as we continue on with the rest of it, you can see that the sun will change, right? As we come here, actually our sun has changed where the sun is actually behind camera, but because we chose to have her turn the wheel, right? That is just creating nice little layers, right? From light to dark. If we go back a couple of frames, right? It's creating interest, right? From light to dark, all right? Let's continue on. And we have here, again, this is just choosing to kind of get nice little flares in, right? You don't want the sun to be in the shot the entire time, but if it's a nice little flare like this is, right? It just kind of comes in, goes out, comes in, goes out. I think for me, that's more aesthetically pleasing. Whereas in the past, I would leave the sun in the shot in a lot of circumstances, a lot of shots, and that's something that I've grown away from, right? So if we keep moving on, again, like nice little leaks of light, right? Where it hits her face, it goes away. It hits her face, it goes away. And when you can have that naturally happen in camera, for me, it's a more engaging story, right? From photographically speaking. So if we keep going on, right? Again, nice little flare. We're controlling the flare. This is the 25 millimeter again. It has pretty good flare control. But again, when you hit the lens directly at a certain angle, you get this nice little like purple fringe, so to speak. And for me, it's actually like a nice little flare, right? It adds something to the aesthetic of the whole thing, right? So again, backlighting is the whole thing. We have a nice little bokeh. I think this is probably just from her window not being clean, but it added, right? It added like nice little bokeh here, nice little highlights from her wristband to her arm, to her glasses. Nice little backage here, right? And that's what happens when you backlight things, right? Which is why many cinematographers choose to backlight their scenes, backlight their subjects, right? We keep moving on. Same thing. She's getting out of the car. We move into this little walking bit, right? We're on the easy rig. We're going handheld. We're following her. And again, same thing. Even though we're not necessarily backlit, we're more being side lit here. Because we choose this side of the line to shoot on, we can create that contrast from light to dark, right? Having a wrap around her face, right? And depending on where she looks, she could be looking to the left, she could be looking to the right. We're able to be we're still shooting on the shadow side, right? We're shooting into the light, so to speak. Pretty harsh light, as you can see, where it just kind of cuts off here. But again, it's able to create contrast as long as you're able to create those distinctions between what is light, between what is dark, what is bright in the frame, what is dark in the frame. You achieve the higher look that you're going for, right? Which is again something that you won't see necessarily on a regular ad or like a commercial on Instagram or Facebook, right? We're really trying to achieve like the higher level look, okay? And especially with like on a low budget too, which is pretty good. All right, so we keep walking. We're going into this little gazebo guy here. We'll skip that. Cool. So this is pretty much like the side of the line that we're choosing to stay on because our sun is in the background, right? Our sun is being backlit. It's backlighting all this, right? You can even see here where it's really hitting this tree in the background. And then again, because of the density of the tree, it's able to fall off into shadow naturally, all right? There's certain parts where you move in for coverage. Here we flip the line. That was just more of like a psychological note. Because she's talking to herself like, is this like, how could this really be happening, right? So that's when you can cross the line, right? And again, when we cross the line, we're still backlit, right? We still have little pings of a highlight here. We have nice bokeh here, pings of a highlight here, right? Going from light to dark. She's on a hard third, so it's kind of hard to miss her, right? In the compositionally. And then we move into coverage here. Again, same thing, right? Even though we're switching lenses, everything is still backlit. We're using as much as we can to help tell the story. right? Have nice little a natural edge light to her. For me, I don't necessarily need like a hard edge light on someone if there is some highlight interest in the background, right? So for her, we have highlight interest in the background here. If this was just complete dark, that's when you would want some kind of light hitting, edging her out ever so slightly, all right? So we move on. It's all pretty much the same. We move here. Now we're getting into pure golden hour, right? This is now where the sun is right. It's coming down below the horizon. So the horizon is here. The sun is here. That's when you get this this very that's when you get this warm color look, right? So one way to achieve that look in camera is using CT straw. That pretty much mimics early morning, late afternoon warmth. Okay. If we keep going, she's talking. She's like, "Man, what is going on? This sucks, right?" And again, this is another example of like a natural edge light, right? Where it's not hitting her so strongly. It's a nice and natural edge light. That's what I like. And we keep going, and we're pretty much, now we're kind of getting to the point where it's okay. There is no light right now. The sun is below the horizon. You're not getting a lot of light. Okay, even for this close up here, I had my assistant Sean with a one of those like circular 5:1 reflectors on the silver side, just to kind of punch as much light as we can to her, get some eye light. And I was wide open at a T1.5. I cleared out I might have had 2 stops of ND, but even then there was just not enough coming back at her. Even this little eye light here, I actually faked in post, right? You just create a little mask and then you keyframe it in, because that was one thing that I was missing, but I just couldn't get it on the day, right? So that's when you kind of have to do it in post-production. So if we keep going, we're moving, we're following her. And again, right? So you can see the sun is below the horizon, right? It's like the ambient glow from the sun is creeping over the hills. That's when you are pretty much at magic hour and you have like 10 minutes to film whatever you're filming, right? Here, she still is pretty bright, which is good. You could always put a mask on her, track it, bring up the levels just a little bit to lift her out. And then the ending shots, right, as we come in here, we play it out. We're just trying to find the frame right here is, why aren't you stopping? If we go back, right? So here again, right, there's not much you can do here. You could, in this situation, you have one of two choices. You can either, well, if you have 2 people, you can choose to bounce from this way, all right? Because again, we want to shoot on the shadow side. We have our sun backlit, right? And then you can choose to neg here if you need to. Something like this, if anything, you probably want both. You want just enough bounce so you have exposure in her, and then just a little bit of neg to kind of shape the light a little bit. I only had one person, and honestly, we tried both. We tried bouncing, we tried negging, and it wasn't really enough on the day. So I just told Sean, hey, go ahead and just start packing up, because there's not much we can get here. There is just a little bit of eye light coming in here. Right, I wish there was a little bit more, but on the day you kind of have to make that choice of, okay, well, what can we still do to get this shot, right? Can we at least get depth of field, right? We have nice bokeh here. Again, this is a 25 millimeter, and we just went in closer on here physically, right? We have still at least some interest here from light to dark. We have the bokeh characteristics here. We have a little bit of natural edge light coming on. So, okay, cool. That looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and shoot it, right? So again, we're kind of floating on the easy rig. We have some nice eye light here. And then here is just a nice, kind of like magic hour shot, right? Where you have this horizon here, right? You have this nice little like glow, which is the same thing as like having top light. When you watch anything from like David Fincher, like House of Cards, they do a lot of top light, and it's this nice little like ambient glow where it's very subtle, right? And again, this is why magic hour helps out a lot when you don't have the lights on the day to bring with you due to budget or resources. You can use this natural ambient glow from the sun itself. All right, so we keep going, and that's pretty much it, right? And we just end on a nice little landscape shot. And that wraps up this nice little breakdown from Tread Softly. The whole theme of the breakdown for this short film was, being at the right place at the right time. I've probably said that like 20 times already, but when you're shooting run and gun, or if you don't have the manpower, the resources, the lighting fixtures, the grip equipment to achieve the lighting you want, then you need to ensure that you are shooting at the location you want, at the right time of day that you want, right? Whether that's early morning, late afternoon, sunset, sunrise, right? Everything in between. It kind of depends on where you're at, if you're inside or outside. Again, that'll dictate what time of day you want to shoot. But for the most part, the visuals, I liked a lot from the visuals. And I think 100% of that was pretty much, choosing to shoot at the right time of day. And again, that kind of comes with experience. But if you're just starting out, if you have a short film coming out, or maybe it's a commercial coming up, and you have to be shooting outside, or maybe you're in a bathroom or an office space, something like that. If you don't have huge lights to work with, then ensure that you can talk to the director, talk to the client that, hey, this will look really good if we can shoot at magic hour, at golden hour, sunset, sunrise, right? Make sure you have those conversations. If you guys have any other questions in regards to composition, the lenses I use, the camera, maybe the color grading, anything like that, please leave a comment down below. I'll go ahead and reply to you. Subscribe to my YouTube channel as always, just so you know if I have new content coming out. And my friends, every day you have an opportunity to create your experience and to write and tell your own story. My name is David Lee. I'll catch you guys in the next video.